The sky over the royal city was a storm of fire and smoke. Ships streaked across the heavens, leaving trails of light that glowed red and orange against the darkening sky. The alien king, Vorath, stood on the balcony of his palace, his hands gripping the cold railing as reports of the war filled his mind. His daughter, Princess Liara, had been on the front lines when the enemy struck, and now there was no sign of her. Every scout and messenger who returned carried only rumors and whispers. "Your Majesty," one of the advisors spoke softly, bowing before the king. "We have no confirmed sightings of the princess. The enemy forces are strong. Many believe she did not survive." Vorath's jaw tightened. He had faced countless threats in his long reign, but nothing hurt more than the thought of losing Liara. She was not just a princess. She was the hope of the empire, a symbol of courage and strength. He could not imagine the city without her guidance, without her laughter echoing in the palace halls. "Prepare the search squads," he commanded, his voice steady but edged with despair. "We will find her no matter the cost." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. War had a way of taking those it favored least. And yet, deep in his heart, a spark of hope refused to die. Far from the palace, beyond the shattered battlefields and burning villages, Liara moved silently through the alien wilderness. Her armor, though scratched and scorched, still bore the royal insignia, marking her as the princess. Every step was careful. She could not risk another encounter with enemy patrols. Her keen eyes scanned the horizon for danger, and her mind raced with plans to survive and return home. Liara was not alone. Beside her walked a human, a stranger in this alien land. He was tall, with broad shoulders, and his uniform was different from anything she had seen. His name was Ethan, and though they barely knew each other, he had proven himself in the last few days. When she had been trapped behind enemy lines, it was his quick thinking and skill that had saved her from certain capture. At first, Liara had been wary. Humans were unpredictable, their customs and behavior strange to an alien princess. But survival had a way of teaching trust quickly. Ethan had shown courage, resourcefulness, and most importantly, respect. Together they formed a bond born not of friendship, but of necessity, and slowly, respect grew into something deeper. They paused at the edge of a ravine, the wind whipping around them and carrying the distant sound of explosions. Ethan checked their supplies while Liara surveyed the terrain. "We have to move quickly," she said, her voice calm but urgent. "The patrols will be out soon. If we stay here, we risk being spotted." Ethan nodded, tightening the straps on his pack. "I've seen patrols like these before. We can use the canyon walls for cover and move under the shadows. It's risky, but it's our best shot." Together, they descended carefully into the ravine. Liara's agility and experience in alien terrain made the journey faster than it would have been for a human alone. Ethan followed, relying on his instincts and learning from her movements. The canyon was dark, but small beams of light filtered through cracks in the rock, revealing ancient markings that hinted at civilizations long gone. Liara took note of the symbols, curious about their history, but there was no time to study them now. Survival came first. As they moved, Liara thought about her father. King Vorath had always been proud of her, yet she knew that his pride was matched by worry. He had built the empire on wisdom and strength, and now he faced the possibility of losing the one person who mattered most. The thought of seeing him again, of standing before him safely, fueled her determination. Hours passed and the terrain grew more dangerous. They climbed jagged rocks, crossed narrow ledges, and avoided hidden traps left by the enemy. During one tense moment, a patrol of enemy soldiers appeared at the top of a ridge. Liara and Ethan froze, pressed against the canyon wall, their breaths shallow. "They haven't seen us yet," Liara whispered, her eyes tracking the soldiers. "Wait for my signal. Then we move." Ethan nodded, gripping the edge of the rock tightly. He could feel his heart pounding, but he trusted Liara's judgment. When the soldiers finally passed, she signaled, and they moved quickly, silently across the canyon floor. That night, they found shelter in a small cave. The wind outside howled like a living creature, and the distant sounds of battle reminded them that danger was never far away. Liara inspected Ethan's wounds from the last skirmish, cleaning and bandaging them with careful precision. He winced but remained silent, impressed by her skill and calm demeanor. "You've saved my life more than once," Ethan said finally, his voice quiet in the darkness. "I don't even know how to repay you." Liara shook her head, her eyes reflecting the faint light of their small fire. You don't need to repay me. You helped me survive just by being here. That is enough. They shared a brief moment of quiet, the kind that only comes after facing death together. Despite the danger, a sense of trust had formed between them, stronger than either had expected. The next morning, they continued their journey. The landscape had changed. The once green forests were now scorched and lifeless, a reminder of the devastation the war had caused. Rivers ran black with ash, and the air carried the bitter smell of smoke. Yet even in this harsh environment, life found a way. Small plants clung to rocks, and distant birds sang their songs, unaware of the chaos that had unfolded around them. As they navigated the ruined forests, they came across a small group of survivors, citizens who had fled the battles and hidden in the wilderness. The survivors stared at Liara and Ethan, their eyes filled with fear and hope. Liara stepped forward, her presence commanding yet gentle. "I am Princess Liara," she announced. "I survived the attack. We are here to help you reach safety." The survivors hesitated, but Ethan's presence reassured them. Humans were known for their courage in Liara's world, and seeing one by her side gave them hope. Together, they guided the small group through safer paths, avoiding enemy patrols and dangerous wildlife. Days passed, and the bond between Liara and Ethan strengthened. They shared stories of their worlds. Liara spoke of the alien empire, its history, and its people, while Ethan told of Earth, a distant blue planet filled with human ingenuity and determination. Though their cultures were different, the challenges they faced made them understand each other in ways words could not fully capture. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with colors neither alien nor human had names for, they came to the edge of a cliff overlooking a wide valley. Beyond it lay the royal city, still standing but scarred by war. Smoke rose from several districts, and distant flashes of light marked ongoing skirmishes. Liara's heart ached. She had survived, but the city she loved had suffered. Yet she knew she could not give up. Her father awaited her, and she would return with a human by her side if she had to cross the stars to do it. Ethan looked at her, sensing the determination burning in her eyes. "We can do this," he said. "Together." Liara nodded, feeling a surge of hope. The journey ahead would be perilous, but she was no longer alone. With Ethan beside her, they would face whatever dangers remained and find their way back to the king. As night fell, they camped on the cliff, gazing at the stars above. The alien constellations twinkled, reminding Liara of her home and the life she had fought to preserve. The stars also reminded Ethan of Earth, a distant world he longed to return to, but now with a mission greater than survival. Tomorrow, they would enter the city. Tomorrow they would face the challenges that awaited them, and perhaps the reunion that had seemed impossible. For now they rested, drawing strength from each other and the knowledge that even in the darkest times, hope could survive. And so under the alien sky, amidst the scars of war and the echoes of battles past, the princess and the human prepared to take the first steps toward a journey that would change the fate of an empire forever. The first light of dawn painted the horizon with streaks of gold and crimson. From their cliffside camp, Liara and Ethan could see the royal city in the distance. Smoke still curled from damaged districts, and the sounds of distant conflict reminded them that the war had not ended. The city they had once called home now lay partially in ruins, and the journey to reach it safely would be perilous. Liara studied the terrain carefully. Valleys, forests, and rocky ridges lay between them and the city gates. Enemy patrols had been sighted recently near several approaches. If they were to enter without being detected, they would need to avoid the main roads entirely and rely on less obvious paths. She mapped their route silently in her mind, considering every possible danger. Ethan, standing beside her, adjusted his pack and glanced at the city. "Do you think your father still has troops loyal to him?" he asked, breaking the silence. Liara's expression was serious. "He does, but many have been scattered or killed. We cannot rely solely on that. We must move carefully and earn our way back." They began their descent into the valley, moving through narrow passes where the walls of rock hid them from view. The air was tense, each step measured. Ethan followed Liara closely, learning to mimic her movements and instinctively trust her guidance. He had survived dangerous missions before, but nothing had tested him like this. Every shadow, every whisper of wind felt like a potential threat. Hours later, as the sun climbed higher, they entered a forest that had once been vibrant, but was now charred and broken. Trees stood like blackened skeletons, their branches reaching toward the sky as if begging for mercy. The ground was littered with debris from battles long past, shattered vehicles, burned armor, and scorched weapons. "This war has taken everything," Ethan said quietly. Surveying the destruction, Liara nodded. "Not everything. There are still people to save and the city still has hope. But we must be careful. Enemies can hide anywhere." Suddenly, a noise broke the silence, a faint rustle in the underbrush. Liara motioned for Ethan to stop and crouched low. Her eyes scanned the shadows. A small patrol of enemy soldiers emerged, clearly searching for survivors or scouts. "Wait for my signal," she whispered. Ethan's hand rested on his weapon, ready but obedient. The soldiers passed within meters, unaware of the princess and the human hiding just beyond sight. Liara exhaled quietly once they were gone and signaled Ethan to follow. They moved swiftly but silently, leaving the patrol behind. By midday, they reached a stream. Water was scarce in the war-torn lands, and both were grateful for the opportunity to drink and rest briefly. Liara knelt by the bank, cupping water in her hands while Ethan refilled his container. "Do you ever regret being here?" Ethan asked softly, breaking the quiet. Liara paused, considering. "No, my home is worth the risk. My people are worth the risk. If I had given up, I would not be doing my duty as a princess. And I cannot leave anyone behind, not while there is hope." Ethan nodded. He respected her resolve, even if he did not fully understand the burdens of royalty. "I feel the same. I may be far from home, but I know we are doing the right thing. Together we can make it." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden movement in the water. A large alien predator, a serpent-like creature with glowing eyes, slithered silently toward the stream. Its scales shimmered in the sunlight, and its gaze locked onto the princess and the human. "Stay calm," Liara whispered. "We can outmaneuver it." She signaled Ethan, and they moved in perfect sync. Liara leaped onto a rock, drawing the creature's attention, while Ethan prepared a diversion. He tossed a small device that emitted a high-pitched sound, confusing the predator. It hissed and recoiled, giving them enough time to escape deeper into the forest. Breathless, Ethan looked at Liara. "I've never seen anything like that." She shook her head, a small smile tugging at her lips. "There are many dangers in this world, far beyond what most humans imagine. You are doing well." As night approached, they found shelter in an abandoned ruin. The walls, though crumbling, offered protection from both the elements and any wandering enemies. They lit a small fire, careful to keep it low and hidden. The warmth was comforting, and the quiet gave them a chance to rest. "Do you think the city will recognize me?" Liara asked, staring into the flames. "After all the destruction, after being gone for so long?" Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "They will recognize you because of who you are. You are their princess, and they will see what you've endured. You are stronger than they know." Liara nodded, feeling a renewed sense of determination. She knew that returning was only the first step. She would need to rebuild trust, restore hope, and face the realities of a city changed by war. But with Ethan by her side, she felt more confident than ever. The next morning, they continued their journey. The terrain grew harsher as they approached the outer regions of the royal city. Rocky cliffs gave way to rolling plains scarred by artillery fire. The wind carried the scent of smoke and ash, a constant reminder of the destruction. They encountered more survivors along the way, families hiding in caves, groups of warriors struggling to regroup. Liara and Ethan guided them, offering supplies and encouragement. Each person they helped strengthened their resolve, and each grateful glance reminded them of the importance of their mission. One evening, as they camped near a small ridge overlooking the city outskirts, Ethan spoke quietly. "There are still enemy scouts near the gates. We will need a plan to get in without being seen." Liara nodded. "I have a plan. We will move at night using the river as cover. It will take longer, but it is safer than risking the roads. We cannot afford mistakes now." As night fell, they began their final approach. The river wound through the ruins, reflecting the pale moonlight. They moved silently, stepping over debris and avoiding detection. Liara's senses were heightened, every sound and shadow analyzed for danger. Ethan followed her lead, trusting her instincts completely. Halfway through their journey, they were spotted by a lone enemy scout. The scout raised an alarm, and distant shouts echoed across the plains. Liara acted without hesitation. Using her agility and combat skills, she neutralized the scout quietly, ensuring no alarm would be raised. Ethan assisted, using his ingenuity to create a diversion that confused any other nearby patrols. By the time they reached the outskirts of the city, the first hints of dawn were appearing. The city was still alive, though scarred and wary. Guards patrolled cautiously, and the walls bore the marks of countless attacks. Liara and Ethan paused to assess the situation. "We made it this far," Liara said, determination in her voice. "The hardest part is yet to come. We must reach the palace without being caught and show the king that I have survived." Ethan nodded, his resolve matching hers. "We can do this. We've come too far to fail now." They moved cautiously into the city, sticking to shadows and avoiding patrols. The streets were quiet, but the tension was palpable. Citizens peered from broken windows and behind barricades, their faces a mix of fear and hope. Whispers spread quickly. The princess had returned. Liara and Ethan navigated the city's ruins, using hidden alleys and old service tunnels to approach the palace. Every step brought them closer to the king, but also closer to danger. Enemy sympathizers and opportunists were still in the city, and one wrong move could end everything. Finally, they reached a small courtyard within the palace grounds. The gates were guarded, but Liara recognized the patterns and movements of the royal soldiers. With careful timing and swift action, they slipped past the guards and entered the palace walls. For the first time in weeks, Liara felt a glimmer of hope. They were inside, closer than ever to the throne room, to her father, and to the reunion she had dreamed of. But the path ahead remained dangerous. The court would question Ethan, her presence, and the choices that had brought them here. Yet she knew they could face whatever came next together. As they paused to rest in a hidden chamber, Liara looked at Ethan. "Tomorrow we meet the king. Whatever happens, we face it together." Ethan smiled, though tired and battered from the journey. "Together," he agreed. The night passed quietly, filled with anticipation. Outside, the city remained in ruins, yet hope was beginning to grow. The princess had returned, and with a human by her side, she would bring not just herself, but the possibility of new alliances, new strength, and a brighter future for the empire. And so, with the first light of a new day, Liara and Ethan prepared for the final challenge, the palace, the king, and the beginning of a story that would change their world forever. The sun had barely risen when Liara and Ethan stood before the palace gates. The walls, though scarred from the war, still radiated the authority of the empire. Soldiers patrolled the ramparts, their eyes sharp and wary. The streets below were quiet, save for the occasional citizen beginning their day. Every movement, every glance reminded Liara that the city had changed, and that she would need to face more than just her father to reclaim her place. Ethan stood beside her, scanning the guards and the surrounding area. "We'll need a plan," he said softly. "We can't just walk in," Liara nodded. "We won't. We'll use the service tunnels beneath the city. They were built for emergencies, escape or secret access to the palace. I know their layout. If we move quickly and quietly, we can reach the throne room without being detected." Together, they descended into the narrow tunnels. The air was damp and heavy, and the faint glow of bioluminescent fungi cast eerie shadows on the walls. Every footstep echoed, reminding them of the dangers that lurked above. Liara led the way, her knowledge of the palace's secret passages allowing them to navigate with confidence. Ethan followed closely, alert and ready, relying on his instincts to catch anything she might miss. As they advanced, they passed signs of the city's struggles, hidden caches of supplies left by citizens, messages scrawled on walls and makeshift shelters where refugees had slept. Liara paused for a moment, touching one of the markings. "People have been waiting for hope," she whispered. "We must give it to them." Ethan looked at her, admiration clear in his eyes. "You've been through so much, and yet you still think of them first." Liara allowed herself a brief smile. "A leader must. That is the duty I carry." The tunnels eventually opened into a courtyard behind the palace. It was quiet, almost eerily so, as if the entire city was holding its breath. Soldiers moved in disciplined patterns, unaware that the princess herself had returned. Liara scanned their positions and devised a careful route. She whispered her plan to Ethan, who nodded in understanding. They moved swiftly, using shadows and cover to stay unseen. The palace itself loomed ahead, its spires reaching into the sky like fingers of authority. Liara could feel the pull of her home, the desire to be reunited with her father and to restore the empire she loved. But she also knew that the moment would not be simple. There would be questions, suspicions, and challenges. Finally, they reached the outer doors of the throne room. Liara paused, placing her hand on the heavy metal handle. Her heart pounded with a mixture of anticipation and fear. She took a deep breath, then pushed the door open. The throne room was vast, filled with the echoes of past ceremonies and the scent of burned incense. Courtiers and advisors stood frozen, their eyes wide with shock. Some whispered to one another, unsure if their eyes were deceiving them. And at the center upon the throne sat King Vorath. His expression, a mix of disbelief and guarded hope, turned toward the door as Liara stepped forward. "My father," she said, her voice clear and steady. The king rose slowly, his hands gripping the throne, his eyes wide with emotion focused on her face. For a moment the room seemed to disappear and only the father and daughter remained. "Liara?" he whispered, his voice trembling. You are alive?" Liara stepped closer, bowing slightly but keeping her head high. "I am, father. I survived, and I have returned to you." The courtiers murmured among themselves, but the king ignored them, his attention fully on his daughter. His eyes glistened with unshed tears, and for the first time in weeks a spark of relief crossed his face. And then, the attention shifted. Ethan, standing beside Liara, drew the room's gaze. Gasps echoed across the throne room. Whispers of disbelief and suspicion spread quickly. A human had accompanied the princess. A human, a species unknown to many in the court, now stood in the sacred halls of the palace. "Who is this?" one of the advisors demanded, stepping forward. "Why is a human here?" Liara held up a hand to silence the room. "This is Captain Ethan," she said firmly. "He saved my life. He helped me survive when all hope seemed lost. Without him, I would not be standing here today." The court erupted into questions and objections. Some whispered of treachery, others of doubt. The king's gaze remained fixed on Ethan, his expression unreadable. Liara knew she would have to defend him and herself. "Father," she continued, "Ethan is not an enemy. He is brave, loyal, and honorable. He stood by me when no one else could. If we are to rebuild this city, if we are to protect the people, we must accept allies from beyond our world. He is one such ally." For a long moment, silence filled the room. The courtiers studied Ethan, searching for flaws, for reasons to reject him. Ethan, though nervous, met their stares with quiet confidence. He did not speak unless spoken to, but his presence alone demonstrated courage and respect. King Vorath finally spoke, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I see the truth in your eyes, my daughter, and I see the strength in this human. If you vouch for him, then I will trust your judgment." Relief washed over Liara. The first obstacle had been overcome, but the war was not over, and there were others who would challenge them. Suddenly, alarms sounded. The palace gates had been breached by a small band of enemy infiltrators, opportunists hoping to take advantage of the chaos. Soldiers rushed to defend the throne, but Liara and Ethan did not hesitate. They moved as one, striking with precision and coordination. Liara used her agility and training to neutralize threats quickly, while Ethan used his strategic mind and technology to outmaneuver their attackers. Together they became a force that no single enemy could withstand. The court watched in awe as the princess and the human defended the king and the city, their teamwork flawless and inspiring. Within minutes, the infiltrators were defeated. The palace was secure, but the event had left a mark. Whispers of their bravery spread quickly, and citizens who had witnessed the skirmish began to believe in hope once more. After the battle, Liara and Ethan stood in the throne room, looking at King Vorath. "You see," Liara said softly, "together we are stronger. We can face whatever comes next." The king nodded, a proud smile crossing his face. "You have grown into the leader I always knew you would be, my daughter. And you," he said, turning to Ethan, "have proven yourself in ways that words cannot describe. Welcome to the palace as an ally of this empire." Ethan bowed, humbled and honored. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will serve and protect as best I can." Liara felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The journey had been perilous, filled with danger and uncertainty, but they had reached this moment. The princess had returned, the human had earned his place, and the king had regained hope for the future of the empire. The courtiers, once skeptical, now looked on with respect and admiration. Some still whispered, but their tone had changed from doubt to awe. Citizens of the city, hearing the news, began to emerge from hiding, inspired by the bravery and determination of their leaders. Liara knew the road ahead would not be easy. The war had left scars on the city, the people, and the empire itself. Rebuilding would take time, patience, and wisdom. But for the first time since the beginning of the conflict, hope had returned. That night, in the quiet of the restored palace, Liara and Ethan stood on the balcony looking out at the city they had fought to save. Fire still burned in some districts, but the majority of the city was calm, its citizens beginning to rebuild. "We did it," Ethan said quietly, awe in his voice. "We made it back." Liara smiled, her eyes reflecting the glow of the city lights. "Yes, but this is only the beginning. The Empire needs guidance, the people need hope, and there are still challenges ahead. Together we will face them," Ethan nodded. "Together," he agreed. As they stood in the moonlight, the palace walls casting long shadows across the city, Liara felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was home, she was alive, and she had a human by her side who had proven himself loyal and brave. The bond they shared was more than survival, it was trust, respect, and the promise of a new era. And so, with the princess returned and the human accepted as an ally, the Empire began to awaken from the shadow of war. The city's citizens, inspired by courage and hope, prepared for the challenges ahead while Liara and Ethan stood ready to lead them. The throne had been reclaimed, but the journey to restore the Empire and protect its people was only just beginning. The first light of morning bathed the palace in a soft golden glow. Smoke still lingered in the distance, but for the first time in months the city felt alive again. Citizens cautiously ventured from hiding, watching soldiers patrol the streets and repair teams rebuild damaged structures. The scars of war were visible everywhere, but so too was hope. Liara stood on the balcony looking over the city. Her heart swelled with a mix of pride and concern. The journey to reclaim the palace had been dangerous, and the challenges were far from over. She knew that leadership meant more than surviving. She had to guide her people, rebuild trust, and restore the Empire to its former glory. Beside her, Ethan observed the city silently, learning quickly the stakes and the people's needs. "People will follow strength," Liara said, her voice soft but firm. "But they also need guidance, hope, and security. We must give them all three." Ethan nodded. "I'll do whatever I can to help. The people may not trust a human yet, but we can prove ourselves through action." The palace halls were already bustling with activity. Advisors and courtiers had begun organizing relief efforts, securing supplies, and assessing the damage to the city. Liara walked among them, offering encouragement and listening to their concerns. Every decision mattered, every word influenced morale. She understood that rebuilding an empire required patience and wisdom as much as courage. Meanwhile, Ethan assisted the palace engineers, using his knowledge of human technology and strategy to improve the defenses and repair critical infrastructure. Together, he and Liara became a team that bridged two worlds, combining alien experience with human ingenuity. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, built not only on survival but on mutual respect and trust. One morning, a delegation of nobles arrived at the palace. They had remained skeptical of Liara's return and Ethan's presence. The courtiers whispered among themselves, questioning how a human could influence the future of their empire. Liara greeted them calmly, her posture confident, her eyes steady. "Welcome," she said. "I understand your concerns, but the war has shown us that survival depends on alliances, courage, and the ability to adapt. Ethan has proven himself as a loyal ally, a brave companion, and a protector of this empire. He saved my life and helped bring hope back to our people." The nobles exchanged uneasy glances. Some remained skeptical, but others saw the truth in her words. The courage displayed during the palace defense could not be denied. Ethan had earned his place, and Liara's leadership gave her words authority. Slowly, murmurs of approval began to replace whispers of doubt. As days passed, the city began to recover. Markets reopened, soldiers patrolled in organized units, and the people started repairing their homes. Liara traveled among the citizens, listening to their needs and offering encouragement. Ethan accompanied her, assisting where he could and learning quickly the intricacies of alien culture. Together, they showed that humans and aliens could work side by side for the good of all. But rebuilding the empire was not without challenges. Outside the city, remnants of enemy forces still roamed, taking advantage of weakened defenses. Liara knew she had to address these threats decisively. She organized patrols, using both alien and human strategies to secure the surrounding lands. Ethan contributed ideas that combined agility, technology, and clever tactics. Each successful mission strengthened the trust between them and inspired the citizens. One afternoon, as Liara and Ethan returned from a reconnaissance mission, they found a group of children playing in the city square. Despite the destruction and danger, their laughter filled the air, a reminder of what they were fighting for. Liara knelt beside one child, her face gentle. "Are you safe?" she asked. The child nodded, eyes wide with admiration. "Princess Liara, you came back. We thought you were gone forever." Liara smiled, touched. "I am here, and we will make sure everyone is safe. This city will be strong again." Ethan watched the interaction, understanding the impact Liara had on her people. It was not just her skill or courage, it was her compassion and determination that inspired hope. He realized that his role was not only to assist her, but also to learn from her example. As the weeks passed, the alliance between humans and aliens grew stronger. Citizens began to accept Ethan, seeing him not as a stranger, but as someone who had risked everything to help the princess and protect the city. He learned the customs, traditions, and values of Liara's world, earning respect through his actions. Together they became symbols of unity, bridging two species through shared courage and mutual respect. One evening, as the sun set, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange, Liara and Ethan stood on the palace balcony. The city below was alive with movement, repair teams, traders, children playing, and soldiers patrolling. The sounds of life filled the air, replacing the silence of fear that had once dominated. "We've come a long way," Ethan said softly. Liara nodded, her eyes reflecting the glow of the sunset. "Yes, and the journey is far from over. But now the Empire has a chance to heal, to grow stronger than before. We will face challenges, but we will face them together." Suddenly, a messenger arrived bearing urgent news. A nearby district had spotted signs of enemy forces regrouping. Liara straightened, her expression resolute. "We cannot ignore this. Gather the troops. We will secure the district before they can cause harm." Ethan prepared the strategic plans, and together they led the operation. Using their combined knowledge, they outmaneuvered the enemy forces without unnecessary violence. The district was secured, and the citizens celebrated the efficiency and bravery of their leaders. This success further solidified the trust of the people and the loyalty of the soldiers. That night, the palace celebrated a victory. Liara addressed the citizens and soldiers from the balcony. "We have survived together. We have rebuilt together, and we will continue to protect our people, no matter the challenges. Today we stand stronger than ever because we are united." Ethan stood beside her, proud to be part of this new era. Though far from his home, he had found purpose and belonging among a people who had once seemed so different. Together, human and alien, they symbolized hope, courage, and the possibility of unity across worlds. In the quiet of the palace, after the celebrations, Liara and Ethan reflected on their journey. They had faced impossible odds, crossed dangerous lands, and survived countless threats. Yet they had emerged stronger, not just as individuals, but as a team capable of leading an empire into a new era. Liara turned to Ethan, her expression softening. "You have done more than I could have imagined. This empire owes you a debt that words cannot repay." Ethan smiled humbly. "I only did what was right. You needed help, and I am honored to have been there." The princess placed a hand on his shoulder. "Together we can achieve more than either of us could alone. Our worlds, our people, they can learn from each other. And that is just the beginning." As dawn broke over the city once more, the empire began to flourish. Repairs were completed, trade resumed, and families reunited. The citizens, inspired by the bravery and leadership of their princess and the human who stood beside her, began to believe in a brighter future. The scars of war remained, but they served as a reminder of resilience, courage, and the strength of unity. Liara and Ethan continued to work side by side, guiding the empire through reconstruction, strengthening defenses, and fostering trust among the people. Their partnership became a legend, an example of how courage, wisdom, and cooperation could overcome even the greatest of challenges. One evening, as the stars appeared in the night sky, Liara and Ethan stood on the palace balcony once again, looking toward the horizon. The war was over, the city was safe, and the Empire had a chance to grow stronger than ever. "Do you think we've really done enough?" Ethan asked quietly. Liara smiled, her gaze steady. "We've done all we can. The rest will come from the people themselves. We've given them hope, courage, and unity. That is enough for now." Ethan nodded, understanding the truth in her words. Together they had changed the fate of an empire. Together they had shown that even in the darkest times, hope and courage could prevail. And so the alien princess and the human who had stood by her side became symbols of a new era, a time of unity, strength, and the enduring power of courage and trust. The Empire would never forget their story, and the stars above would forever witness the dawn of a brighter future.